Today is not a quiet news day in Santa Clara. Brandon Aiyuk has become a real market problem. A defensive rumor has every fan dreaming. Brock Purdy is once again being dismissed by people who see the system before they see the player. And Mac Jones is proving too valuable to treat like a footnote. Drop a like and subscribe because this starts with frustration, moves into ambition, and ends with the future. And the Aiyuk situation hurts because this no longer feels like a normal stalled negotiation. It feels like one of those standoffs where the league recognizes the other side's weakness and chooses to wait. When rival executives look at San Francisco and believe the 49ers will eventually release Brandon Aiyuk, the market simply locks up completely. Nobody wants to surrender a pick. Nobody wants to absorb a heavy contract. Nobody wants to pay a premium for a receiver coming off a serious knee injury after that much time away. That is the brutal business side. But for this fan base, there is an emotional layer that cuts deeper. Aiyuk was not just another name on the roster. He was a core piece, a trusted target, a big play threat, someone who felt woven into the offense's identity. And now the conversation has gone somewhere else. According to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, two rival executives see Aiyuk as basically untradeable right now. The reasons come back to the knee, the contract, and the lack of communication that reportedly weighed heavily throughout the process. When a player shuts off communication at critical moments, the situation stops being only about talent. It becomes trust. It becomes availability. It becomes the question every general manager has to ask before putting draft capital on the table. Am I acquiring an answer, or am I inheriting a problem? That is where the 49ers have to be tough, even if it feels uncomfortable. Kyle Shanahan said back in March that the team was not in a rush to help another franchise out quickly. That line matters. Because right now, this is not about doing favors. It is about protecting the San Francisco 49ers. And that 4-year, $120 million contract sits there like an anchor. If Aiyuk were released during the summer, Fowler noted that the Niners could clear somewhere around $20 million in cap space. At that point, sure, interest would show up. But teams showing interest after a release is one thing. Giving up assets before that is something completely different. So the read is painful. Maybe the best case outcome is still salvaging some kind of small trade, some return that keeps them from walking away empty-handed. But the league can sense the waiting game, and the 49ers can sense it too. The option bonus does not hit until September 1st, so Santa Clara can breathe, read the board, and avoid deciding out of frustration. Aiyuk has become a symbol of what happens when talent, contract, health, and internal relationships all collide. And as sad as it is to watch this story get to this point, the team has to act like a mature contender. No reckless emotion, no public panic at all, no handing away value because the rest of the league is waiting for the fall. Then comes the kind of news that makes a fan stop, stare at the screen and think, hold on, if that door ever opens even slightly, the 49ers have to pick up the phone. Myles Garrett being linked as a possible trade target in speculative scenarios changes the whole mood. Because this is not a normal addition. This is a player who can completely wreck an offensive game plan. San Francisco's defense still carries names, history, respect, and talent. But everybody who follows this team knows the defensive front has to bring real fear back. Not fear based on old reputation, current fear, third down fear. Quarterbacks speeding up their reads before they want to. Offensive coordinators changing calls because they know the pocket could disappear in 2 seconds. That is why Garrett hits this fan base so hard. Put a pass rusher at that level in red and gold, and you are doing more than adding sacks. You are changing the way the NFC looks at the 49ers. A player like that immediately forces double teams, opens space for other defenders, shortens drives, steals rhythm, and turns tight games. In January, that kind of presence is not a luxury. It is the difference between surviving and controlling the game. But of course, the heavy part shows up right after the excitement. Cleveland would not hand over Myles Garrett out of kindness. A move like this would cost serious draft capital, shake the financial plan, and demand an aggressive choice from the front office. This is not a convenience trade. It would be a statement. It would be the franchise saying, our window is open. This roster still has a championship core, and we are not going to watch the train pass while hoping a cheap answer falls into our lap. The real question is not whether Garrett fits the 49ers. He would fit any serious team right now. The question is whether San Francisco would be willing to pay the price for a move that might squeeze the future in order to supercharge the present. That is where the soul of the debate lives, because contenders do not live on caution alone. They live on calculated courage. For now, it all stays in the realm of possibility. There is no announced deal, no officially open door from the Browns, no certainty that this path exists for the Niners. But big rumors survive because they touch real needs, and this need is real. San Francisco has to reignite terror in the pass rush. If Cleveland ever listens to offers, John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan cannot treat this like fan fiction. They have to evaluate it like people who understand that opportunities this massive almost never show up twice in the same window. What makes the Brock Purdy conversation exhausting? It is not criticism itself. A quarterback for a major franchise has to handle pressure, especially when that franchise is San Francisco. What gets exhausting is the lazy label. Chris Sims put Purdy at number 17 in his ranking and used that system plus idea like it was some balanced compliment. In reality, it is the same polished way of saying, I see the results, but I still do not want to give full credit to the player. And I ask this as a fan who has watched this team deal with injuries, moving parts, pressure, missing weapons, and heavy games. How long does Purdy have to play through the chaos before people admit he is not just a passenger in Kyle Shanahan's offense? Yes, Shanahan helps. Of course he does. Great coaches help great quarterbacks all the time. Nobody takes credit away from a quarterback for playing in a well-coached system when he wears another uniform. But when it is the 49ers, every completion becomes scheme, and every mistake becomes Brock's limitation. Ben Solak brought a similar read when he said Purdy depends heavily on Kyle getting the first read open and can throw himself into bad interceptions when defenses fool him. There is a real technical point there. Purdy has forced throws at times. He has made ugly mistakes. He has struggled against elite defenses. But turning those flaws into a final ceiling is unfair. Every quarterback carries flaws. The difference is that with Purdy, a lot of people use the flaws as final proof and use the success as a product of his environment. That messy season showed something else. Without Deebo Samuel, without Brandon Aiyuk, with George Kittle and Ricky Pearsall missing time, Purdy still kept the offense competitive when he was healthy. Juwan Jennings became the top receiver in several moments, and that is no shot at Jennings, but it changes the whole context. The quarterback was not driving a perfect car on an empty road. He was trying to keep speed with parts missing, noise everywhere, and contender expectations on his back. And when he came back right, when the offense started breathing again, those weeks against the Titans and Bears showed a loose, accurate, confident Purdy playing exactly the kind of football this fan base recognizes immediately. You do not have to call him the best quarterback in the league to defend what is obvious. Brock Purdy is good, above average as a floor, smart, competitive, still growing. I want to hear from the faithful in the comments. Does Purdy still need to prove it to analysts, or has this criticism already become stubbornness dressed up as evaluation? Because to me, the 49ers did not pay him for a nice storyline. They paid him because they saw a real quarterback. The Mac Jones news might seem smaller at first, but it hits a point serious teams understand before the rest of the league does. Quarterback security is worth gold, and San Francisco has a rare situation. Brock Purdy is the starter, the project, the contract, the face of offensive continuity. But behind him is a backup who has already played meaningful snaps, already kept the offense alive, already shown he does not step onto the field looking like some improvised emergency plan. Mac Jones quietly finished last season with 545 snaps for the Niners, a 77.1 overall PFF grade, 2,151 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. It was not perfect. He had 10 turnover-worthy plays, but he also had 8 big-time throws, and more than anything, gave the 49ers something many franchises do not have. A QB2 who does not make the stadium hold its breath in panic every time he has to play. That is why Mo Moton's read for Bleacher Report stands out. He put Jones at the top of the backup quarterback trade market and suggested it would take a 2027 second-round pick to pull him out of Santa Clara. Does that sound high? Maybe, if you only see the name. But if you understand the context, it makes sense to ask for a lot. The 49ers know Purdy's recent injury history. They know how long a season can get. They know a contender campaign can fall apart if its backup is just a decorative presence on the sideline. There is another detail, too. The revised contract shows that the team does not see Jones as disposable. The 49ers adjusted the deal for 2026 with a $300,000 roster bonus, $3.55 million in total compensation, and incentives that can reach another $2.25 million. That does not scream inevitable trade. It sounds like an organization working to keep a functional piece satisfied, valued, and in the building. The funny part is, the market still looks at Jones with doubt. Matt Mayoko explained that people around the league are giving a lot of the credit for his success to Kyle Shanahan's system. It is almost the same shadow hanging over Purdy. When somebody plays well in San Francisco, someone always tries to credit the scheme before recognizing the player. But the Niners do not need to convince the league right now. If nobody pays the price, Jones stays. And staying can be a win, because in a season where every game can decide seeding, positioning, and survival in the NFC, having a reliable backup is not a luxury. It is competitive life insurance. The day leaves one message pretty clearly. The 49ers are in a phase where every decision carries the weight of a team trying to get back on top. Aiyuk demands firmness. Garrett sparks ambition. Purdy deserves respect. Mac Jones proves depth can help win a season too. That is Santa Clara right now. Tension, calculation, pride, and urgency. The faithful know when this team is being tested from every direction. And that is exactly why the conversation cannot cool off. If you want to follow every Niners signal with me, subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay close, because this story still has a lot more coming.